I would love for our legislatures to actually come down and take a field trip, right? Come out of Olympia, quit looking at the I-5 corridor, right? Come to this side of the mountain, actually take a look, right? Because we're doing some really cool things here.
Two bills introduced in the State House of Representatives address homelessness in Washington. House Bill 1255 looks to remove illegal encampments, while HB 1380 would defend the use of public property to sit, lie, sleep, and stay warm or dry. Welcome to Nonstop Local at 6. I'm Ava Wainhouse. As state and local governments grapple over how to handle the homeless crisis, the answer to the bigger picture could be in our backyard. In a story you'll only see here on Nonstop Local, Xander Adams visited Camp Hope in Yakima to learn what sets it apart from other shelters and the challenges people without a home face in turning a new leaf. Xander, good evening.
Good evening. The issue of homelessness in Yakima County stands starkly worse than in neighboring areas, and regardless of your opinion on those two bills Ava mentioned, none of that gets to the root of the problem. Camp Hope may have figured out what works, and it's changing lives.
It saved my life. That's what it needs to be.
It's much more than a camp.
It's different, man. It's not run like any other shelter. It really isn't.
Levi Lazat is here now, but it took a wayward path. 5 years ago, he got out of jail, and the only thing he had left was his car.
Spent the whole winter in my car. That sucked. Like blowing through a tube into my feet to keep my feet warm. That sucked.
He went back to Sela, his hometown.
And 25 is like the magical age for males in schizophrenia.
Levi had a mental health crisis. He says he doesn't remember much, but knows it lasted 3 days.
So I went up to Matt and Uncle's after that. And they're like, Levi, you're probably like having some mental health issues, man. This is the gist of it.
He got treatment and made his way to Camp Hope, hired on as a monitor, working to save others at the same place that saved him.
This job in this place has been the best thing for me.
CEO Mike Kay is one of the founders of Camp Hope.
So it's been going on 8 years.
He's seen a lot of people come and go.
If you know the Camp Hope model, there's not another shelter like this.
They go beyond the operations of the typical single adult or domestic violence shelters.
This has all that and a whole lot more, right? So we're seeing everything from human trafficking survivors coming in to refugees coming in. To domestic violence survivors, to the chronically homeless, to the elderly that just can't afford medication, and that's really hard to see.
Sheltering up to 250 people at a time while looking past the surface to what's behind the crisis.
You know, the people that the average citizen sees on the street isn't sleeping in the snow because they want to. It's a mental health condition.
On top of giving people a place to stay,
we decided that, we're not going to solve this by ourselves.
They partner with Comprehensive Healthcare to have a medical doctor on site and a case manager to take people to services they need. They're also building a behavioral health center to bring in a therapist, making treatment directly accessible.
People that are getting their lives back because we're able to actually treat the root cause of why they're homeless, not just the symptom of why they're homeless.
That's still not as simple as it may seem. There are barriers to building a new life.
Our family shelter is bursting at the seams right now because of the cost of affordable housing.
Washington's Department of Commerce identifies nearly 10,000 people as homeless in Yakima County. That's over 6,000 more than the Tri-Cities area and up 3,000 from 2016.
You start looking over here, and our commissioners are having to fight for every dollar they get to go to the shelters that are here.
The Washington State Advisory Council on Homelessness identifies housing affordability as the primary driver behind homelessness. So what's being done here?
Housing development is really a top priority and has been for the county.
District 2 Commissioner Kyle Curtis is spearheading Yakima County's 5-year plan. Now as the chair for the executive committee of the Yakima County Homeless Coalition, he admits there's some ground to make up.
The plan that we adopted in 2019, frankly, was inadequate. It didn't have measurable goals.
Curtis says more than 100 community members showed up to a meeting in February, identifying key issues and sharing ideas.
I think one of the trends that really kind of surfaced to the top out of all the groups was mental health, that we recognize that while not everyone that's unhoused or experiencing homelessness has a mental health component, a majority of them do.
In direct response to concerns of a lack of affordable housing and a lack of housing overall, Curtis says local government can only do so much.
In our community, we don't have a lot of excess dollars just sitting around, and so we really depend upon the state's assistance in order to carry these affordable housing projects forward.
He credits efforts by community stakeholders to source funding for the state to match, but it's a double-edged sword. The commissioner points to the state again when it comes to letting developers do what they do.
In our state, it is so cumbersome to get a permit to build a house with all of the regulations and rules that government has placed on it. frankly, government needs to get out of the way. I think we need to cut a lot of those rules and regulations and allow our developers to just do what they do best, which is build, right? And I think when you have an increase in the housing market, the housing stock, you're going to have a direct correlation to a decrease in the number of folks that you see out on our streets.
In the meantime, as people fight to get back on their feet, Camp Hope has seen big success helping them. In Levi's case, he's working on his path forward, and he wouldn't be able to without the lifeline, the hope Camp Hope gave him.
Do not be worried about coming here. You are safe here. There are places that we can put you where you can be even by yourself. If you need that, we can provide that for you.
As for the success Camp Hope has seen, Operations Manager Suzi Caprino gave me some numbers to put it in perspective. Last year, they logged more than 1,600 enrolled residents, 24 families among those people, and 37 people transitioned into permanent housing, as well as others reuniting with their families. So far this year, Camp Hope has already helped 15 people find a home. Another thing Caprino noted, although it is Levi's story, the general stigma that many homeless people had lost everything from going to jail is just false. She says of the 1,600 residents last year, only 17 came directly from jail.